Hey, Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode, which features an interview I did early this year on the Bangkok Podcast. That's right. One of the co-hosts, Ed Knuth, is interviewing me about retourism in Bangkok or in Thailand. It's super fun. I wanted to share it with everyone because it'll give you a little more insight about, how I've been able to reinvent myself and the interesting things you can learn when you start traveling. And if I think about it now, I first traveled to Thailand over 20 years ago. Yeah, I first went there in, I think, February or January of 2002. Gosh, yeah, 21 years ago. I don't want to think about it too much. Whatever it is. But check it out. And it turns out, so Ed Knuth is an old friend of mine from Cleveland, Ohio. So we grew up together, went to junior high and high school together. And he has an interesting connection to JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, because if you look at the artwork for the podcast, if you know the logo is a sort of modified, stylized from an actual photo of the clock tower up in Chiang Rai, Thailand, in the north of Thailand. And way back when I started traveling again around 2016, I was up knocking around up there with Ed, and he took the photo, and it ended up being the artwork for the podcast. This was before I had any idea I would do a podcast. I was kind of maybe thinking about it, didn't have a name for it or anything like that, and so we were knocking around. It was fun, and he's into photography, so it came out to be a nice picture. I think he actually took it on my cell phone, believe it or not, my cell phone back then, whatever it was. It's an earlier cell phone picture. But that's kind of a fun connection. And he's also been on this podcast, JimJim's Reinvention Revolution, episode 26. So you can search JJRR 26 and check out my interview with him. But he was nice enough to invite me onto the Bangkok Podcast to talk about retourism. So that's a thing over there. There's a big expat community. And so you'll hear my story and my thoughts about why it's interesting to keep returning to a place that you've been before, rather than exploring other places. But there's reasons why I go back there and I drop in, and that's my location in Southeast Asia to get started. And then you can kind of jump off to many other points once you get over there and start figuring out the lay of the land. So check that out. Really excited for you guys to hear that. But before we get there, I wanted to mention that I have a new sponsor for this podcast, for this episode. Sponsor relationship, affiliate relationship. So if you've been watching my JimJim Group X account, or formerly known as Twitter, at JimJim Group on X now, or the Facebook page, JimJim's Reinvention Revolution Podcast Facebook page, I've been mentioning that I'm going to be doing an unboxing and review of Magic Mind. Have you heard of Magic Mind? MagicMind.com. Check it out. So it's a new drink that is filled with adaptogens and nootropics and L-theanine and matcha, and there's all kinds of good things in there. And so I'm actually, by the time you hear this podcast, I will have done an unboxing and Facebook Live, where I try it for the first time and give you my review, my thoughts about how it tastes, how it's making me feel, etc. So check out that live. The live, you can watch the rebroadcast of it if you just go to the Facebook page and listen to it. So after the fact. But in any event, go check it out. And I have a discount code for it, so which is cool. So everybody listening can, if you haven't tried it before, or if you've tried it already and you still want to get some more, it'll give you, I think, $20 off. It's a pretty good discount code. And the discount code is magicmind.com/Jim Cirillo. JimCirillo. Just put that code in, you'll get the discount. If you can't remember that, you can always go to my Linktree, which is Linktree/JimJim99. That's easier for you to remember. The Magic Mind discount code will be there. You just click on it, and it'll take you right to the Magic Mind page. But check it out. It's like kind of bubbling up. I'm really, really, really fascinated to try it. And like I said, by the time you hear this episode, I will have done the Facebook Live, so go there to JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast on Facebook, and you can watch the rebroadcast of that. So that's all I got. All right, so let's get on to this week's episode, where you can hear this interview I did on the Bangkok podcast earlier in the year with Ed Knuth. You're just going to hear the audio drop in and you'll know what's going on. All right, here we go.
Welcome to JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, JimJim.
All right, well, in this episode, Ed sits down with his buddy Jim Cirillo, a great example of a re-tourist to Thailand, a member of that large community around the world that has fallen in love with Thailand, but fallen short of actually living here as an expat. Now, the guys discuss Jim's visit to Thailand more than 20 years ago, what's changed since he first got here, what's caused him to keep coming back to the land of smiles, and how the country looks to re-tourists post-COVID. So here's Ed's talk with Jim Cirillo, a re-tourist extraordinaire.
All right, folks, I'm coming at you live from the Millenium Hilton Hotel. I'm with a very old friend of mine, Mr. Jim Cirillo. Jim and I actually went to junior high together. We've got a lot of stories. And if he says anything bad about me, I've got plenty of stories about him. So we're going to keep it clean. We're going to keep it clean.
We are? Okay.
Anyway.
I was loading up all those stories. Now I'm like, now I got to reload, man.
You better think.
Okay,
before
all right, let me do that first.
You tell those stories. Jim is, like I said, old friend of mine. We'll talk a little bit about that. But he's also a repeat tourist, or re-tourist, as we like to call them on the Bangkok Podcast. He's now been in Thailand. Is this your fifth or sixth time? Well, actually, if we count the earlier one.
This might be my seventh time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through, we're going to talk about Jim's story. But first, I just want to thank Jim for coming on the podcast. So, Jim, thanks for being here. It's a long time coming.
Long time coming.
Agreed.
Sure. We've always talked about it, so.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, Jim and I went to junior high and high school together, and of course, kept in touch over the years. A lot happened over the years, but I moved here, as listeners know, in 2000, and Jim came within the first couple of years. So your actual first visit was 2002?
2002, yeah. I believe it was end of January, February 2002. So a similar time of year as we're talking now.
A much different world than we live in today.
Definitely. It definitely was.
All right. So since we're gonna get into this topic of how you became a repeat tourist, but why don't you tell us just like why you came here the first time and what intrigued you? I mean, obviously I was here, but we weren't dating or anything, so you didn't have to come see me.
No, I didn't.
So refresh my memory of your first visit.
Okay, well, it's funny you mentioned that it's a much different world now than back then. But back then, one of the reasons why I was able to come was because it was quite soon after 9/11. So 9/11, 2001, right, was September. And I was working in Boston. I was working in the technology and engineering world out there. And this is right around when the tech bubble burst, as they call it. And so everybody got laid off, basically, that was doing these kind of new innovation kind of companies. Sure. And so I had time on my hands.
Okay.
Okay. And so another friend of ours, another mutual friend of ours, we'll call him Goose,
right.
Reached out to me, or we were talking at the time. And he said he was going to go traveling and he wanted to go to Australia. And I'd never been to Australia. And I have cousins there, Italian cousins on my dad's side. And I'd never been to Thailand. And I remembered that you were there. You were talking about, well, Ed's in Thailand. Maybe we should go to Thailand too. And I had time because I was laid off. And I was still getting my severance pay.
Oh, funny.
So it was cool,
It's funny. I did not remember that at all. Yeah. I wasn't sure exactly why you came at that time. So actually, it was pretty close after 9/11. It wasn't that distant from 9/11.
No, it was just a few months later. And when we were booking the plane tickets, we booked it like in November.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, this is crazy, because they're still showing footage of people walking around airports around the world with machine guns and all this kind of crazy stuff,
Right. And you were coming to Thailand.
Yes, bomb sniffing dogs. I was very nervous, actually, because I hadn't traveled internationally that much. I'd done a little bit by then, but I was like, well, maybe this is the right time to go because everybody's on high alert and
sure, maybe it's safer.
Maybe it's safer, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when I came.
Yeah. So in short, Jim and our buddy Goose, another guy we went to junior high and high school with, I can't remember. I think I might have had one group of visitors before you, but you were definitely some of the first visitors, which I really appreciated. Like it was kind of cool. For me, it was such a big deal being over here. I mean, now I've kind of gotten over it, but the first 5 years, I felt like I was living on Mars or something. So every set of visitors was a big deal.
Sure.
And we had a great time. So I know we spent time in Bangkok, but we did some traveling. So we were chatting before we started recording. So we actually went down to Samui. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, Koh Samui.
Yeah. Do you remember like your just first impressions of being in Thailand? Did it seem really weird or chaotic, or what was it like?
Yeah. Well, yes, a little bit of all of that, I guess. I mean, obviously it's a big city. You know, the people, completely look different. The streets are jammed, just crazy. I mean, it's a lot less developed than it is now, I guess.
Right. I think traffic probably was a lot worse. So we had the SkyTrain on Sukhumvit back then. I mean, now it's been extended a lot, but I don't think the MRT had opened by 2002. So I mean,
really? Okay.
There was so street traffic would have been worse, I think.
Oh yeah, the street. I remember that the way to cross the street was you just start walking into the street because there's no way the traffic was ever going to stop. Like now, that seems like there's regulated stoplights and like
somewhat.
Yeah, I mean the crosswalks that are more obvious and all that kind of stuff. Like back then, it was just like. How do you get across the street? It's just complete chaos in all directions. And so you just have to start walking, and then people kind of got the idea, someone's trying to cross, let's be cool and not run them over,
Well, man, Sukhumvit is still scary, but back then it was really scary because, Sukhumvit is divided in the middle. But back then, sometimes they had lanes going the opposite direction on like the wrong side of the median. So it was very confusing. So you're walking across and traffic's coming one way, and you haven't crossed the median yet, and then it comes from the other way.
Right.
Yeah,
it was crazy. And by the way, talk about what was on the streets and first impressions. I remember back then they had elephants walking the streets of Bangkok.
That is correct. Okay. It's funny that you remembered that because, like, for me,
how could you not remember that, dude?
No.
There's elephants walking down the street.
No, I remember it. I'm just glad that you remembered to mention it.
Okay.
Because I remember just being here initially during the first year and how much that like just messed with my mind and like just. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I ever really got used to it. It's just so weird seeing elephants on the street. And I get most of our listeners probably have never seen it, but it was quite a common occurrence back then.
Yeah, just walking down the sidewalk. I mean, obviously they weren't in traffic, but this is like a big animal, and they were smaller elephants. They weren't like the big kind of really full size,
younger ones,
smaller ones. But I was just like, and I guess the intention was they were like kind of trolling for tips or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. So you could buy like a bag of peanuts and give it to them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It's funny that so that was still true in 2002. It wasn't that long after that they started a crackdown, because I think they were pretty much gone by 2006, 2007. I can't remember, but okay. It's been a long
crazier
time.
Things. I was like, wow, this is wild,
Yeah, it's been more than 10 years for sure since that was true. But you're right.
Not the United States. Yeah.
That is true. True. So we did go down to Samui.
Yep.
And it's funny. You were like, I barely remember it. I can't remember what we did or.
Well, I remember another thing that stuck out to me back then was. That the internet was around, but it wasn't prominent. We didn't have smartphones and all that kind of stuff. It was the days of like internet cafes.
Sure.
You'd pop in and check your email, and
sure.
I remember writing sort of like emails back to people at home, like a little bit of a journal. It's like before blogging was big, really.
Right.
And, it was like, I guess I was blogging a little bit back then.
And you were in Thailand, man. You were halfway across
like
the
far
world.
out, right? Anyways, we get down to Koh Samui, and we didn't know where we were going to stay. And we just assumed like, we'll find a place to stay. And we were in this taxi, and the taxi guy was super cool and just stayed with us as we asked for recommendations, like where should we stay? Because we really didn't know anything about the place. And the taxi guy says, I will show you. And he stayed with us and took us to like 3 or 4 places,
right? Like
super patiently, just waiting.
Now I remember
waiting on us to find one that we liked.
I'm not sure why my act wasn't together. I'm not sure why I didn't have reservations already.
If I was with someone else, maybe they would have been more coordinated. I don't know, but we were kind of all butt heads back then.
Yeah,
a little bit,
can't remember why I didn't have my act together. But
I have one more thing I remember now that I'm thinking about. Okay, so we finally find the hotel, and we're gonna go pay the taxi driver, and we ask him how much it is, and he says, "You decide."
Oh, really?
I was like, what?
Damn, your memory's better than mine.
Yeah, I was like, what did he say? You decide, sir. You decide. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
because he just knew that any amount that we would come up with was going to be higher than probably what it actually cost.
Right,
because
right.
we're like Americans or whatever. And I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, you decide. What?
Right. Oh, that's great. That's great. Maybe it was a
crazy.
nicer time. I'm not sure. I haven't heard you decide in a while, but
Yeah.
oh, that's great. I think that a lot of one thing that you forget sometimes as a tourist is that all these people are used to dealing with people in your situation. So it's
That's
like,
right.
like you think like, oh
It's
my
happening
God,
to you for the first time.
That's right. That's right. It's funny. Greg and I have mentioned this on the show. It's like in tourist areas, you can get some of the best customer service ever because people are pros. But you can also, in some ways, get the worst because sometimes I think people who work in tourist places just get grinded down by like a million people.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's a weird mix. But you get some really pros and people who've just done it for years and they know what they're doing. And they're ready for anything,
Yeah. No, we found a nice spot. It was super cheap. It was like maybe $15, $20 a night max.
Yeah.
AC, little pool right on the beach. I mean,
Yeah. No, that was a cool trip. Like all those early visits, like I've got really vivid memories of playing the tour guide. Like that was during my first 5 years. I wouldn't say I had a ton of visitors, but I would say I had some visitors every year, either friends or family. Mm-hmm. So I got kind of good at taking people around. We should go here, we should go there. And I had basic Thai because I worked on my Thai like kind of early when I got here, and then it just plateaued. It just kind of stayed. It just kind of stayed there.
Right. Okay.
So I already had like basic Thai. So those are good memories.
Right.
Okay, so fast forward almost 15 years, probably something like 14 years. You decided to come back. Right.
Yes, I did.
Was that 2016?
In 2016.
2016.
So before we move on, should I mention Win Wan, the massage place?
Yeah, for sure.
So sorry, we were talking earlier. So this was something like maybe that people out there listening that are Bangkokians would be like, oh, I remember that.
Win Wan was a traditional Thai massage place that was on Sukhumvit near Soi 3. And the whole block subsequently got torn down. But Win Wan was my go-to joint for probably 5 years.
Yeah. So that was So, Thailand for the first time, it's like you have to have Thai massage,
Sure,
like part
absolutely.
of the experience.
Absolutely.
And I had no idea what even a Thai massage was, and I was just so blown away by that experience because you go into this place, and I think maybe we went up a level or something to the rooms upstairs, and there's like these sort of cubby holes that were separated just by like a curtain, I think it was.
That's right, sure.
And you're laying on the ground, and then, and so like there was 3 of us, I think we're all there, and we're having this massage if you never had a Thai massage, I highly suggest you try it.
Right.
But what's interesting about it is, the massage person is like crawling on top of you and stretching you and bending you and just contorting your body. And it's kind of crazy. So these sounds and just, guttural things just come out and you start laughing and whatever. And so you just hear this cacophonous laughter and chatter from all different languages, whatever, obviously half in Thai, but I just thought, man, this is such a bizarre, weird, intimate experience of a massage to have amongst all these other people that are just a curtain away.
That's right.
I thought that was like, this is something that I don't know, you wouldn't find in the United States.
Yeah,
maybe somewhere.
You could obviously talk to your buddy while it's going on, but a lot of times the masseuses, the women, a lot of times they're talking to each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're kind of conversations, and sometimes they just start singing. Like and a lot of times it's in Pasa Isan, which is like the northeastern dialect. But they'll just start singing songs, and I remember this very vividly. And those massages were great. Like,
it was awesome.
Like real traditional Thai massages where it's like your joints are getting a workout, and they're bending you this way, bending you that way, and it's that weird mix of pleasure and pain because it can be painful, but then feel good. And
100%.
I know you can still get them. I still get them, but I feel like these oil massages took over. And the oil massage, like if you say you want an oil massage, it's a little bit more of a westernized thing. Like you would think it would be, no, it's going to be traditional Thai with oil, but it's really not. Like you got to say Thai massage without the oil if you want to get the...
Yeah, this was the Thai massage. You had to put on these little pants and a shirt.
That's right.
It was a dry sort of clothed massage, but it was crazy.
Win Wan.
And I remember the prices even. So we paid $8. It was a 2-hour massage for $8.
Oh, really?
We gave them $10 US, and they like all lost their mind.
Oh,
you
right.
know? They were like, "Oh, thank you, sir. Oh my God." You know, I was like,
Yeah, it was
what?
probably-
I'm like, what La La Land am I in? You know?
Yeah, it was probably like 200 baht or 250 baht or something like that. And, we gave him like $2 tip. Yeah, man, I had a lot of those massages. I think I know Thai massages it's in the top 5 things that people know about Thailand, but they're worth it, man. Totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you ended up coming back after a long while. So 2016. For me, it was kind of wild that you were coming back because we're obviously much older now. You're not really retired. I'm not even sure I would officially call you semi-retired, but you've got a little more time. You're also a musician, a saxophone player, and so when you travel, you tend to bring your horn around.
Right.
And I was just looking forward to being here and just seeing what it was like now that we're older. And I'm not a newbie anymore. You had been here before, so I don't remember what sparked you coming back.
Well, a couple of things. So that first experience like stuck in my mind. Another thing about Thailand in particular was that it was really just open for tourists. Like it was very friendly. It was very easy to get around, even though it's a completely foreign culture, completely foreign language. I mean, you can't understand one word of Thai. It's not like Italian or Spanish where you might be able to sound something out or look at the word on paper.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
That's
they're writing in Thai, they're speaking Thai. There's nothing related to like a Latin, whatever,
Right.
English or whatever. But you could get around, and everybody seemed to know English, and everybody was very open to like working with you. You didn't get a funny feeling that they don't want you here or whatever.
Sure.
Anyways, and it was just super diverse. I thought in the back of my mind, I was always thinking like, I'd like to explore more of whatever that was, this travel culture. Like I never did it. Like I went to school, just like started from when I was, in 5th grade, started music plus all the schoolwork, played in all these bands. You go to high school, you do all these sports in high school, music, whatever. You go to college, went to college, then I got a master's degree, then I went into the workforce. And like I never had really taken a break much.
That's right.
My whole career,
Right. So you were working a regular job as an engineer, and then you were gigging. So you never really stopped gigging. I mean, you might have taken a break for a couple of weeks
I
here
was
and
just
there.
always doing a lot.
That's right.
It just seemed like that way. And
Sure.
I didn't take breaks. I didn't have like a travel year off that people do now and all that kind of stuff when they get out of college. So I was like curious to start traveling more. But the reason why I decided to break away or whatever was I'd become a consultant. So I was in the corporate world for a while. And in 2007, I think it was, I had quit a job at the end of 2006 and somehow fell into consulting just through friends of a friend. They called me and I'm like, I guess I'm a consultant now.
Right.
Because I didn't want to take a new job. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it's lasted all these years since then. But what was happening in 2016 in particular was my main client was not paying me.
Oh, shit.
And it was super frustrating. And they were like 90 days behind and they owed me like 15 grand.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, this is like a serious thing. And this is me like, hammering them for like 6-8 weeks about when are you going to pay me? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. It was like some big corporate, sort of fighting between the VPs of department budgets and all that kind of stuff. But I was just like, I got to get out of here before I choke somebody to death. Like I really need like a break. And I thought, you know what, maybe now's the time. And I've never taken this much time off work when I decided to come here in 2016. I decided to travel for a month because I was like going that far. And I thought it would be fun. I always wanted to come back and see what was going on with Bangkok. So, and you were still living here. So that was kind of a crazy thing that you were still here.
Now it's funny. I forgot this as well, but I remember you wanting an escape. I remember you being like, God. I got to get out of here, man. I got all these
really
issues.
Fed up with the world at that point.
Well, it's cool that Thailand represents this. I know Thailand has its own chaos and it's got some stress in its own way, but just getting out of your normal life, getting out of the work routine.
Yeah, that's the key.
Getting away from your career and just kind of going on an adventure.
Right. That's what I needed. I needed to disrupt all that stuff. And so I came and I dropped back in and it was just, it was crazy. I had just, I stayed for a month and this is when we went to Chiang Mai.
That's right. We went up to Chiang Mai.
I had no idea what Chiang Mai was when you mentioned it.
That's right.
I just was coming to Bangkok. That's about all I knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember they have these memories of Bangkok. I'm just going to drop back in. I had no idea really about the islands or Chiang Mai or much other places in Thailand at this point. And you suggested we go to Chiang Mai. So we went up there.
Now, your first year, did you gig? I can't remember. Did you have your horn that first
Yes,
year?
yes.
Okay, that was the very first year. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I arrived here like late on a Monday night at 1 a.m, and by Tuesday night, the next night, I was at the Alchemist. With Ample Soul.
That's right.
Local band. You guys should go check out.
Yeah, no, that's
shout
fantastic.
out to T. Okay.
That's right. That's great because like a weird part of your story is because you're a musician. And because you knew me, I was able to just immediately connect you with like local musicians, and then you could just set up a whole network with them.
Right.
And so it's another thing about Bangkok is that I still argue with people. I don't think Bangkok's a great live music city considering how big it is. I feel like it should be bigger.
Yeah.
But there is a scene. Like there's a
scene. There's really great musicians here. Great music. You know, another surprising thing back in 2002, I don't know if I really recognized that, but in 2016, you know, you think about the world differently, or I was doing different things. So I had my horn with me this time, and it's just surprising that, you know, you travel all the way to the other side of the world, but everybody knows what American jazz is, American pop music, blues, and all this very familiar music stuff.
Heck yeah.
You know, where I'm thinking like, oh, it's just going to be total like, you know, Isan Thai pop or something like that.
Right. Yeah. It's not, yeah. No, there's an international scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you brought that up because in my first 2 weeks in Thailand, I went to saxophone and there was a great blues band and I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were so good because I used to live in Chicago and I couldn't believe I was seeing a great blues band of all-time musicians, but it's part of my education.
Right. It's like mind-bending, you know.
Yeah,
you're like, this sounds great, and you're like, wait, they're all Thai. Like I've never seen this perform with my own eyes, you know.
That's
sort
right.
of like,
That's right. Yeah.
Crazy, you know.
It's great. So I remember that at that time I was actually watching a lot of live music and I was shooting a lot of video. That was almost like my peak live music fan time. And so I think you ended up gigging with like 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah, it was completely insane how the city opened up, and you were part of that because you like connected me with this band like that Tuesday night, just like the first day I was here. Right. And then they were like, man, that was great. What are you doing Thursday? And I was like, I don't know. We didn't have any plans. I didn't have any plans really.
Yeah.
And I just knew I was going to be here for a while.
That's right.
And so then I think I hooked up with them on Thursday, and then I went to a jazz jam that they had on Sundays back at Check-in 99.
Check-in 99, that's right. Yeah, the jazz jam, which is still going on, but now it's at the Queen Bee on Soy 26.
Yeah, same cats are holding it, which is super cool. But Check-in 99, unfortunately, is no longer
defunct,
around, but that was a really
classic
cool spot.
old venue, right?
Yep.
But Ample Soul is still around because you just gave with them last night.
Last night at Sarni's.
That's right.
Sarni's Bangkok.
Sarni's off of Charing Krung, great kind of neo-soul band called Ample Soul. Excellent, good memory.
Okay, so I was like, what on earth is Chiang Mai? I was, weird name for me. And he was like, oh, it's up north. It's a little bit cooler up there. And when I first came to Bangkok, it was super blazing hot,
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, let's do that. And it's more, there's more old city ruins up there and waterfalls and elephants, like more cultural.
Temples,
so it's cool. Remember we went to Doi Suthep and
that's right, Doi Suthep, the mountain, sure.
Yeah. And anyways, and I remember when we were up there, this is like maybe a little bit of an aside, but it was something that impacted me and why I probably ended up coming back again and again, other than just Thailand being so cool. I remember you telling me, hey, I think there's some travel bloggers that like to hang out up here in the cafes.
Right.
I remember you saying that. It was like, and your perception was they were travel bloggers. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we came back to Bangkok and hung out. It was super cool. Met all these musician people and it was just super fun to hang around. So I went back home, and then this is at this time, I don't know if your listeners out there would recognize this or not. Chiang Mai was kind of the epicenter of digital nomads.
That's right.
Okay.
I don't even think I think right at that time, I'm not even sure. So this was six years ago or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I even knew what a digital nomad was.
Right. Not many people knew.
Right.
And it started bubbling up a couple years before that, maybe 2013 or 14, just historically. But I think it was probably peak around 2016 or 2017. And I had no idea either.
Right.
And I don't even know if I knew the term. But when I got back to the States, I was like, finally worked out with my customer that they finally paid me and whatever. But I had such an interesting time of meeting people and talking to people and seeing what was really going on. Now as a more mature person that's got more experience in life, when I first came, I'd just been working for a few years. I didn't know what I was seeing.
Chiang Mai is still like a digital nomad capital.
It is. It still is.
I feel like there's been, I don't know what to call it. I feel like there might have been, since 2016, I think there's been a little bit of a pushback against digital nomads. Like I feel like it peaked maybe.
It kind of, I think it
maybe
peaked, well,
COVID hurt the digital nomads.
Well, I think it's yes and no, I would say. So it kind of peaked in terms of maybe the vibrancy or something, like the early people getting into it. I think now it's more widespread. There's more people that are considering remote work, and like
it's kind of less
it's kind
special.
of grown.
It's more normal. It's more normal.
A little bit more normal. Exactly. I was trying to figure out how to describe it. Yeah, it's a little bit more mainstream, more normal.
Right.
Still pretty far out there, but back then it was really far out there. But I just remember that one point, because when I got back to the States, I started thinking like, what, it's time for me to maybe really do something different, not do the same consulting I was doing, because maybe that was just a blessing in disguise of my customer kind of messing around with me. And I started researching online business, and I'm an engineer, so I know the hardware engineering world. I didn't really know that much about software back then. I know a little bit more about it now in terms of marketing business models and just the internet itself.
Sure.
And I felt like, maybe I need to dig into that a little bit more. And when I started searching, it kind of blew my mind that Thailand came up. And Chiang Mai came up. If you started searching like drop shipping, for example, or e-commerce or affiliate marketing, all this kind of stuff, and it's still to this day is an epicenter for a lot of those things. But Chiang Mai came up, and I was like, I was just there, like, what? Like I had no idea.
Oh, that's great.
And it was good that you turned me on to it.
Well, in a way,
because then I knew kind of what it was. I'm like, oh, this is really happening. Wow.
In a way, it ended up changing your life, because part of your getting into this is you started your own podcast.
You are correct.
Yeah. So tell everyone about your podcast.
Okay. So, all right. So, and you know what? You have a part in the podcast.
I do. A big part.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it was the second year I came back. Okay. So that was, now it's 2016. I was like, okay, this was a really mind blowing experience. I realized, you know what? I got to get moving. I got to change myself. I got to do something different. I'm not going to consult the same way my whole life. I want to play more music. I want to see more of the world. And I definitely told myself, when I was coming back to the States, it's like, I'm definitely going back next year, because it just blew my mind. And I got out of the winter, and it was just a number of things that happened. Okay.
So you became a re-tourist.
Right. I became a re-tourist. So that was starting in 2016. So, okay. So, but in the fall of 2016, so I started researching these business models. I went to the dropship lifestyle, kind of give those guys a shout out, because they had a hand in changing my life too. So Anton, thank you. And all the crew that works with Dropship Lifestyle. I went to their conference in Hawaii in the fall of 2016, and I really saw the future of what's really happening now in a bigger way in 2016. So I saw all the people that were vlogging and blogging and doing video, and the real digital marketers. It's like, and the real e-commerce that was happening, how money's really flowing inside the nooks and crannies of the internet.
That's right,
and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, it just totally blew my mind. So I decided to start a store.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right. You did start a store for a while. That's right.
So I'm like, okay, because I joined the group. I'm like, I'm going to build a store. And that winter, I was about ready to kind of turn the store on, whatever. I got all my suppliers, and I got the idea what I was going to sell, and I built the site and everything. But my aunt died in 2017 in the fall, like in December, like right around the holidays. And I got like sick. I had like the flu or something for like 10 days or 2 weeks. I was really sick. My aunt died. It was just like a bad time. And it was during the holidays. And I was debating whether to come back or not, because this was like, okay, now's the time. I got to buy a ticket soon or whatever. But I'm like, you know what? It's what I really want to do, even though it's going to disrupt or interrupt me building the store or starting the store.
I see.
Okay. But it's something I really wanted to do. So I'm like, screw it. I'll buy the ticket. And you know what? When I get back in March of 2017, that's when I'll open the store.
Fire it up, right?
Fired it up. But part of the course, and again, shout out to Dropship Lifestyle, is sort of this mindset track they have in it, trying to really change your mind, how you think about things, like knowing who you are, knowing who your customer is, that kind of stuff. I kept thinking about it. In the corporate world, it's about changing your mind to be more of an entrepreneur. And I thought, am I going to be happy doing this or not? Like, what am I doing? And I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time. And so I thought, well, maybe I was joking around. So this is what happened in 2017. this time around, instead of going to Chiang Mai, we decided to go to Chiang Rai. Or that was your idea, maybe.
Or did we
again.
go to both? I can't remember. I think we drove around. Didn't we rent a car and drive around?
Or maybe we went up to Chiang Mai and drove up to Chiang Rai.
I think so.
Maybe
like
that's what happened.
Yeah,
But we decided to go north again.
Yeah, we went to Chiang Rai.
Okay,
though. Yeah.
so this time I remember we saw the White Temple up there.
That's right.
Chiang Rai was like, that was another mind-blowing thing. We're like, oh my God, this place is crazy. And while we were walking around downtown Chiang Rai, I was joking around, like thinking like, well, I was going to open this store, but I like the idea of podcasting, talking to people and exploring ideas, you know, kind of like you're doing with the Bangkok podcast.
Right.
And it could be, you know, related to something I want to talk about. And so we took some pictures. So like, take some pictures up here. So maybe I'll use these for the podcast. I was just joking around.
That's right.
Literally just joking around. I had no idea what I would even do. But one of those pictures, it turns out, became the cover art of JimJim's Reinvention Revolution.
Yeah, so that's the name of Jim's podcast, JimJim's Reinvention Revolution. He's going to tell you about it, but I strongly recommend it. And it's kind of fascinating that it had its birth up in Chiang Rai.
It did. It really did. So it's like, and I just love the picture. And I couldn't find it for a while. Like I just remember we'd take it. I'm like, where does this picture exist? And I think it only existed on your phone or my phone. I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Like it wasn't a proper camera picture.
It's a picture of Jim like standing with his arms up in front of like the
clock tower.
The clock tower, right?
Downtown, sort of like downtown Chiang Rai.
Yeah, I like that pic.
Yeah, it just sort of speaks to like, now's the time. Like there's just a different feeling that I had of like the world maybe be opening up in a different way for me, whatever it was.
Right.
And the nature of the podcast, so JimJim's Reinvention Revolution, is I felt like I really needed to reinvent myself.
Sure.
And I was so taken aback by what was really going on with the internet and digital marketing, that stuff that I hadn't really paid that much attention to. And my business, my consulting business, and the stuff I've always done was advanced engineering or advanced development. So I was developing new products in the engineering world, and I realized, you know what, this is so fascinating. I need to learn more about really all the advanced technology, including software and the internet. And I realized I was way behind.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, oh my God, even though I'm like a forward thinker, visionary kind of dude in my normal work, I'm way behind on some of this other stuff. And I realized it was super hard for me to build this store, for example, from the get-go. Like I didn't have these software skills.
Right.
And it was a struggle. And I realized I really have to reinvent myself to even try to dabble in this industry or in this world in the internet. But at the same time, the world is moving so fast, and I could see all the other parts of it that were moving, like the EVs, you know, oil and gas changing to electric vehicles, you know, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, all these other things that are changing. It's like, I want to talk to people that are doing this, that have figured it out already.
Sure.
They're maybe ahead of me. So that's kind of what the podcast is about.
Sure.
I interview people reimagining success in the digital age, what it means to them, and how they're doing it. That's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
That's what I still am trying to do.
Yeah, Greg and I talk a lot about how we both grew up being kind of technology computer nerds. But the bottom line is, in this, whatever we're in, the internet age, digital age, it's things change so fast, it's that I can't keep up with it. You know, it's like, you know, in the last 2 months, it's been like ChatGPT, and like it's like, and my buddies are like testing it out and doing this. It's like, it's so hard to keep up, man. It's like shit changes so fast. And like your podcast is really about how it affects people's careers or what economic opportunities it opens up. So it is, I know you've had younger people on there, but a lot of it is people, a little bit older people who are trying not to miss these changes, and you're kind of trying to open up people's eyes to like, we're not living in the same world. I strongly recommend this podcast. I mean, there's many good things about it. An incredible variety of people, which is cool, but it sticks with this theme of reimagining yourself. Yeah. And it has a tech focus, but not everyone is super tech oriented. Like, for example, I've been a guest on the show.
That's right. Episode 26.
Let's get back to this idea of you being a retourist. I think what happened, I mean, you kind of hit it on already. I think what happened is, each time you came, you kind of expanded a little bit. Like you know, we did some of the same stuff that we'd done before, but each time you came, you were like, oh, I want to go to Cambodia, or this time I'm going to go to the Philippines. So each time you came, you kind of expanded yourself, and maybe that made it more interesting, and it's why you want to come back, because you're not doing exactly the same thing every time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I kind of had it in my mind to keep exploring or trying new things, because like once you get here, you know, Bangkok is an interesting hub of Southeast Asia.
For sure.
You meet all these people, and they might even ask you like, well, have you been to Angkor Wat yet?
That's right.
I'm like, what's Angkor Wat? You know,
Yeah,
like,
that's right. Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, it's just like an hour plane ride away. It's
That's
not.
right.
It's not like, you know,
Yeah.
another 3 days to get there. You're very close, and that's another allure, I guess I would say, of why to become a retourist in this region or to Bangkok.
That's a good point. You know, I usually when people talk about coming to Bangkok, is I've got my spiel, but it's all local stuff. But you're right. It's a great hub is the perfect word. If you want to go anywhere, like here to Singapore, here to KL, like here to Vietnam.
Right.
Right. Super convenient.
So, okay, so there's still more places I want to go to. So,
Right.
I'm not getting bored of coming here because it's like I haven't been to Vietnam yet.
Well, as we're wrapping up, I just want to mention, for me, how weird this is because, you know, you and I grew up, we're two middle-class dudes. You know, we went to good schools, we did good in school, but we didn't come from one of those families that was like traveling around the world all the time. I mean,
Right.
you
Definitely not.
I mean, you got some Italian blood. I think you did some traveling, so you're probably more international than I was. For both of us, like, I feel like we're just two regular guys from Ohio, and so now I feel like a world traveler, and you really are. I mean, I don't actually travel that much, but at least I live over here.
Right.
But I mean, now you've been like, I think we have reinvented ourselves.
Well, I'm working on it, you know. I feel I have in some ways, definitely, like compared to like our other buddies that have remained in Cleveland,
stuck back in Ohio,
stuck back there, but or just stuck in their mindset in that way.
Right.
But yeah, traveling is a super. It's one of my 7, simple ways to prime your mind for reinvention.
Oh,
okay.
excellent.
So like so I have a little thing if you go to the website for the podcast that you can download it, but it's ways to prime your mind. So like travel is just one of those things that disrupts your patterns, get your mind ready to be open for change or whatever.
Sure.
And Bangkok's been a big part of that. Thailand's been a big part of it.
Sure.
And probably will remain a big part of it.
Good advice for our listeners, man. Our listeners, just when they get the Thai bug, it just never seems to go away. And it's like, I do think it has something to do with the mindset and psychology and the Thai attitude. It's infectious.
It is infectious. It's the Thai attitude on top of the other people that you meet here.
Sure.
You know that if they're here, they're probably a little bit out of the norm.
Yeah, they did something different.
They did something different. Like if they're from the States or from Australia or from England, like other, expat type people, you're like, oh, they're not in their hometown. They're not in their home country. So they're open to something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I think your story is an ongoing one. So I'm sure I'll be checking back in with you on the podcast. Maybe next year we'll see what's up with Jim in a year or so. So thank you.
I would love to do it.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Cool, man.
Man, that was really cool to hear. Were we the first ones to coin retourist? I haven't heard it anywhere else.
Heck yeah, we did.
We claimed it. All right, cool. Well, it's cool to hear the viewpoints of a retourist who come back to Thailand because, like it said in the beginning, there's that gap between coming here over and over again and then actually living here, and sometimes it just makes more sense to just keep visiting than it is to live here.
That's right. I mean, it's one of the things that I've learned on the podcast of how many people there are out there who are part of this. It's like a Thailand fan club, like
right.
Worldwide. This is just a popular country, and it's not just for one-time tourists. I mean, so obviously we've talked about it a lot, and a lot of people listening, you guys know I'm talking about you. But it's one thing I learned. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect of traveling. And I also like what he talked about reinventing himself too, because we've done whole shows on that before. When you first show up to Thailand, like if you do take the plunge and move here, or even if you just travel here, like you step off the plane in Thailand, you can be whoever you want to be.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean like,
that's right.
My name is Francois Le Burglar. I'm a mysterious Frenchman or whatever, but you can, leave your old life behind and you can sort of be more confident or try new things,
That's right. I think it's part of the culture here, just the way people are. It's very easy to do that. And it fits with Jim's thing because, he's got his own podcast, JimJim's Reinvention Revolution, which I strongly recommend. He's got great guests. And it's all about, it's usually people a little bit older, not necessarily super old. Some of them are in their 20s. But it's kind of people adapting to the new kind of digital economy. And so the shows involve all kinds of just interesting new topics. And one of the many reasons he likes Thailand is that, there's a lot of digital nomad stuff happening here. There's a community of people who are into crypto. especially up in Chiang Mai, it's got that whole vibe of people who they don't want to work in an office, and they just like this idea of having an online life or an online career.
Yeah.
And so that's part of one of the many things. He mentioned many things he likes about Thailand, but that's just part of it. And it's just in a way, it's just Thailand has this just interesting recipe of cool stuff. Whether it's the beaches or he likes the music scene here. Some people are into the food, and people come for so many different reasons. But yeah, this idea of just kind of the opportunity to become someone new, that's one of the Thailand things.
Yeah. I do it a little bit, just tiny little bit every time I go into a Starbucks. I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but whenever they ask for my name, I never say Greg because a lot of times they can't pronounce it properly. So I just say my name is Joe. Everyone can say Joe.
There you go. You're reinventing yourself.
I reinvent myself in Starbucks every day.
That's so funny. It was actually very cool for me to interview him, even though he and I are good friends, because I had kind of forgotten about his early visit. He came, as he explained in the interview, he came in 2001, not that much after 9/11. And so he was here a long time ago. He was here 20 years ago. And then he didn't come back for about 15 years or so.
Oh, wow.
And then since then, he's been here like 6 times. So I think in total, we figured out, he's been here 7. So he had this big gap. And so when he came back, it was fun seeing all the differences. So we, like we talked about, we reminisced about, he remembers elephants walking the street. And, and he was talking about how cheap his room was, like down in Samui. And the other thing was, this reminds me of our show on, things in Bangkok that have disappeared, things we remember.
Right.
Because there was a fantastic traditional Thai massage place called Win Wan, which was basically on Sukhumvit between Soi 1 and Soi 3, which is now kind of a mall with a Burger King in it and stuff like that. But there was a great Thai massage place there. And I got addicted to it my first couple of years here. And, this is the old school stretching you, bending you,
right.
like lifting you up on their feet. I mean, this was like hardcore traditional Thai massage. And Jim checked it out when he was here, and I made all my buddies do it. And it was such a cool atmosphere. And I know it still exists. I just haven't done it in a while. But it's like the women are all older. A lot of them are from Isan, and a lot of them chat with each other while they're massaging you, or maybe sometimes they start singing songs, and it's just and there's a smell, there's an aroma of like the menthol or whatever they're using.
Yeah,
and it's just, I have these very vivid memories,
Oh,
of my first year at Win Wan. So a shout out. I don't know if there's anyone out there who remembers Win Wan, but it was cool. It was cool to hear Jim bringing back these memories that even I had forgotten about.
I love those old memories.
Anyway, I think Jim has got to come back on because he's going to keep coming to Thailand. Like he's locked into the music scene here. He's got music friends here. He doesn't even need me anymore. He's gigging here. So I'm sure he'll be back. So I think he's a good candidate to become a re-guest. He can be a re-guest.
A re-guest. I like that term. Maybe one day we can just sort of put our little fingers on the scale and tip him over into expat territory from re-tourist.
Maybe. It's interesting. I mean, he likes to travel, and it's a whole nother topic, but he's super into like travel points and miles. And so when he comes, man, it's like he stays in nice hotels and he gets upgraded. So probably the places he stays at the hotel would be nicer than any condo he would get here. But who knows? Maybe in the future he'll do it. We'll see.
Right on. Well, thanks, Jim. That was really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
And there you have it, my retourism experience. Ed and Greg, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I wanted to let that run there to let everyone hear Ed and Greg's thoughts on retourism and how they see it from their eyes, from their point of view, but also for you guys to get more of a flavor of the Bangkok podcast and the banter and the experience and the concept of their show. It's really a great show. Everybody knows it, who is an expat that travels to Thailand. At some point, they discovered the Bangkok Podcast, and they looked to the Bangkok Podcast for, a lot of resources, really. Resources and experience. They had talked about all different topics about travel-related things, people that are living in the country for extended periods of time, visa type things, just cultural differences and cultural experiences from different people from different places and how they perceive Thailand and how Thailand perceives them, vice versa. So it's pretty fun to listen to those guys chat it up. And of course, they have interesting guests like myself, of course, on. But anyways, thanks for listening to this episode. But make sure you check out the Bangkok Podcast at some point, bangkokpodcast.com. And if you do, tell them that you heard it from me. Tell them where you discovered the Bangkok Podcast. That'd be fun. Anyways, I hope you got a nice idea of retourism and what it can do for you, and why Thailand just seems to be such a unique place, at least for me. The things I like with mix of music and technology, and a good place to go in the winter when it's cold here in North America. Anyways, hope you had some fun with that. Thanks again for listening, and make sure you check out magicmind.com if you haven't already. Get the discount code magicmind.com/Jim Cirillo, or go to Linktree /JimJim99 if that's easier for you to remember. And we'll catch up with everyone listening next time. Thank you for listening to JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it, and will help others find the same value that you found.